What's up, guys? Tony Hannity's here from LazyTechGuys.com, and this is another episode of the LTG Mobile Moments, episode 7, recorded on April 22nd, 2015. Again, this is a beta show. We're still trying to test some things out, but I do want to welcome you. And if you are watching live, the Q&A is open. So if you have any questions or comments or anything you want to chime in on, please let me know live, and it'll be a lot of fun conversing with you about whatever that you want to talk about related to the topics at hand. Now, obviously, the biggest thing in mobile that happened today was the official announcement of Google's entry into the wireless carrier race. So Google announced Project Fi, or I guess maybe it's just going to be called Fi, but they announced Project Fi today, which is a collective MVNO with Google, Sprint, and T-Mobile, and Wi-Fi in the areas where Wi-Fi is going to be strong for you. And the way that Google poises this to work out for you is very similar to what we have said in the past. Essentially, wherever you are, whatever the strongest signal is available, that's the signal that you're going to use for your voice calls and your data connections. So if you're in San Francisco, and it's been a while since I've used T-Mobile and Sprint, to be perfectly honest with you. But last time I used Sprint was actually about a year ago with the HTC M8. And I used it in San Francisco, and it actually wasn't such a good signal. Obviously, times have changed. Maybe it's gotten better, but for argument's sake, let's just say it hasn't. And so in San Francisco, maybe you'll use T-Mobile. And then when you go into the outskirts where T-Mobile doesn't have the 4G connectivity, maybe you'll use Sprint at that point. And then the moment you step into Starbucks, because Starbucks has that agreement with Google and high-speed wireless internet for their patrons, you would automatically switch over to Google and rather switch over to the Google Wireless or the Google Wi-Fi, I guess. The question that I have with those kind of agreements is that when you switch over to Wi-Fi, are you every time going to have to agree to the terms and conditions? And what is Google doing about unencrypted Wi-Fi or Wi-Fi that is just maybe Comcast? Because Google has nothing to do with Xfinity Wi-Fi or cable Wi-Fi. Can you connect to that? And does that have to be affiliated with your existing Cox cable or Time Warner cable or Comcast cable connection? We don't exactly know the details about that right now. But what we do know at this point is how it's going to be priced out. Now, what we thought at first was that voice and text messaging would be free, but that is actually not the case. The base amount that you're going to pay, no matter what amount of data that you want, is going to be $20. And then for data, for every gigabyte that you need, it's going to cost you $10. So the least amount that you're going to spend each month on this prepaid MVNO solution is $30 a month. Now, at first glance, I thought to myself that, well, let's just see how this would fare for me. My bill with 5 people is roughly about $300 some on Verizon Wireless, and we have 30 gigabytes. I personally used maybe, I want to say, let's just have a round number, 10 gigabytes a month. So that would cost me about $130. And if I were to remove my line from Verizon, I would really only be saving like $70 a month, even with my employee discount with the daytime employer that I have. So for me, this actually wouldn't be such a good solution. However, for a lot of people out there that don't use as much data, this might be a good option for them. And one other very important aspect about this is the data that you don't use, specifically for every 100 megabytes that you don't use, you're going to receive not a check, but you'll receive a credit or some sort of kickback on your bill. Maybe it'll go directly back to your credit card or debit card that you use, or maybe it'll go into your Google Wallet account. You'll receive $1. So if you opt in for just 1 gigabyte for $10 and you only use 700 megabytes of that, you're effectively going to receive $3 back at the end of the month. And that's pretty cool. And also, in addition to that, if you do go over your preset allotment, I'm assuming at some point the phone will notify you, especially with the application that we saw last week called Tyco. It'll notify you saying, hey, you're about to get very close to your data allotment. Do you want to add more? And at that point, you can add another gigabyte for 10 bucks, if you will. So there were a lot of websites that kind of broke it down. And one website that I want to bring up is Ars Technica. They actually have a really good table here showing the different prepaid wireless solutions, at least here in the United States. And the first one is Project Fi. And with addition to talk and text only, like I mentioned, it'll be 30 bucks for 1 gig of LTE, 50 bucks for 3 gigs, and $70 for 5 gigs. If you look at Republic Wireless, it is actually unlimited, and it's only $40. So you don't have to worry about any kind of allotment whatsoever. There's also Straight Talk from, I believe that is a Walmart solution. $30 is the base. 1 gigabyte will be $45. 3 gigabytes would also be $40 to $45. And then the one that was most interesting to me, because it also takes the idea that you literally pay for the amount that you use, is Ting. So for example, what happens with Ting is that if you say, I'm only going to use 3 gigabytes, but you use maybe 2.5 gigabytes, they also give you some sort of refund to a degree, whether that you can either roll that over into the next month or it just goes right back onto your credit card. So at first glance, this isn't the best of solutions, but let's look down here at a company known as Verizon Wireless. So case in point, if you have a smartphone, there's no text and talk only option, obviously. 1 gigabyte of LTE will cost you 70 bucks. 3 gigabytes, I don't want to keep saying terabytes. 3 gigabytes of LTE is going to run you 90, and 5 is going to run you 110. So comparing Verizon for a single line user to Project Fi, that is obviously a big savings. But then you're going to have to kind of combat Verizon's whole kind of deal of them being the most fastest, strongest, and most broad 4G LTE network, as well as their introduction of XLTE to Project Fi. Now, for the most part, if you're watching this show, you're probably, to a degree, a tech enthusiast, tech nerd, geek, whatever you want to call yourself. And you would probably use a lot more data than your run-of-the-mill average customer. But the run-of-the-mill average customer, with the advent of Netflix and YouTube and Spotify and things like that, they're definitely going to be using a lot more data than they were back in, like, let's just say 2012. So let's take the median. 3 gigabytes of LTE on Project Fi, 50 bucks. And then Verizon will be 90 bucks, T-Mobile will be 50 bucks, Sprint is a little bit cheaper at 45. But again, because the argument there, you could say, well, Sprint doesn't really have a good network. So with Project Fi, if T-Mobile is a better network in the town or city or province that you're in the United States, you might be able just to switch over to T-Mobile. And that's the other thing. You do need to make sure that if you do decide to sign up for this, in order to sign up, you have to basically ask for an invite. In order to sign up for this, you want to make sure that there's signal in your area. So if you go to the website, and I believe the actual URL for Project Fi is literally fi.google.com. So very easy to get to. You can type in your zip code and it'll let you know if there's signal or not. Here in the Bay Area, obviously there's signal, so I signed up. And if you were wondering, okay, so now I've signed up, hopefully I'll get the invite come back to me, and I can actually use my device. What device will work with this? Well, at the beginning, it'll only work with the Nexus 6, and I looked into why why they've decided to do just the Nexus 6 in the beginning, and really the reasoning is according to the Q&A section on the fi.google.com page, one of the questions is, what is different about the Nexus 6 cellular radio for it to work with Project Fi? According to Google, cellular networks use various network types and groups of radio frequencies to send and receive data. The cellular radio inside the Nexus 6 works with all 4G LTE networks in the US and many around the world, unlike the radios and other smartphones, which work with fewer network types. One way to think about it, imagine if your car radio only supported AM or FM instead of both. So that makes sense. But the fact of the matter is, they're running this on Sprint and T-Mobile, and I have Verizon Nexus 6. And so I'm not actually even sure if I can run my Verizon Nexus 6 on Project Fi, and I would probably bet that is not the case. So if you have a Nexus 6 already, what they're going to do is they're just going to send you a SIM card, and you can sign up for the service and everything. If you buy a Nexus 6 from Project Fi, one of the questions was, will it work with other providers? It says, yes, the Nexus 6 you get from Project Fi comes unlocked and can be used with other wireless providers if you choose to leave our service. But the thing is, when they've had unlocked devices for Nexus lines, only the unlocked devices could work on T-Mobile and T-Mobile, AT&T, and sometimes Sprint, but usually it was always like T-Mobile and AT&T were the two that unlocked devices would work with, and very rarely would that work with Sprint and AT&T, really because of the fallback, the technology that they use is CDMA, not GSM, not UMTS, so, or HSPA or HSPA plus. So with regards to the cost of the Nexus 6, you can get the Midnight Blue and one of two storage size, 32 gigs for $650 or 64 gigs for $700, and then taxes apply as well too. Or you can pay it up front, or you can pay it over the course of the 24 months. So there's no interest fees if you do that, but there is a credit check if you do decide to pay over the course of the next 24 months. So it's kind of a pricey expense to pay off for the phone, especially for the first iteration of their first step into this wireless network game. And I would be first to say, I don't think that this is necessarily going to catch on with the everyday average user, but it will catch on at least for testing purposes for a lot of us nerds out there. Like I said, I signed up as tried to do a request an invite, and I looked in some of the other forums that are out there regarding this, and some people have said there's really only about 1,000 invites that are going to go out. Now you might say, wow, that's really low. Well, it is, but it isn't. Google needs to figure out the infrastructure, and they need to figure out how this is really going to work in real life, in real time, with multiple people, not just a few Googlers in Mountain View. So having 1,000 at first is probably a good idea instead of just flooding the market with a bunch of Project Fi devices and only 1/3 of them work and 2/3 are just bunk and for whatever reason just can't connect to any kind of network system. So this is really good. Another thing is the fact that you can actually use this internationally as well too. So 120 countries are going to be under the same $10 per gigabyte without any kind of roaming fees. Now, the data speeds in these other networks are limited to 256 kilobits per second, which is essentially 3G. But it's still within the existing data plan that you're effectively already going to be paying for. So if you skip over to Mexico or go up there to Canada, you can use your data. It's not going to cost you anything more. It's just going to be a lot slower, but you can still, get directions, call somebody. And the idea of why Google is doing all of this, like they essentially want to be the backbone of everything when it comes, they want to be able to control the pipeline all the way through. So first you have Google, who are selling you ads, right? And then you have the internet connectivity, which is going to be on a phone, and obviously it's an Android phone, which is again supported by Google. And what's on Android phones? A lot of other Google services and applications that they want you to use. And thusly, you're just a huge data mining hog that they're going to really kind of get out of you. Now, the argument could be said, with the Nexus 6 or a Galaxy S6 or LG G4 on any carrier out there, Google can still get your information. But when they control pretty much all the way through as much as possible, they're able to kind of get the metadata and track that and analyze that a lot better. And maybe in the future, upgrade the infrastructure to the point that maybe they will have their own wireless service and not have to lean on the shoulders of carriers like T-Mobile and Sprint. Now, is this bad for T-Mobile and Sprint? Yes and no. T-Mobile and Sprint have been two of the most popular companies, at least here in the United States, for MVNOs. So if you, like I said, if you ever heard of Ting or Republic Wireless, Smart Talk, they all use T-Mobile and or Sprint connections. So they wouldn't even exist if they couldn't get the wholesale pricing on the spectrum, the data connections of the towers that the larger companies use. So it is in the best interest for T-Mobile and Sprint as well, because, well, Google is paying them. It's not just a partnership of, okay, let's shake hands and done is done. No, they're getting some sort of monetary kickback. How much it is exactly, we're not quite sure, but it's probably something. I don't even want to speculate, but it's probably something that is maybe a little bit cheaper than some of the other MVNOs, because this is really the first of its kind. We've seen other MVNOs like TracFone. TracFone uses it as an MVNO of AT&T, T-Mobile, Verizon, and you might say, well, how is that possible? How is that one SIM card allowed to flip-flop between all the different carriers? I don't really know the technology behind it, but I know that it does. And so it's the same kind of idea. They don't really flip-flop between carriers and Wi-Fi like Project Fi will, but being able to flip-flop between T-Mobile and Verizon is completely possible. And the reason why Verizon and AT&T didn't want to put their 2 feet into this, but it's just not feasibly financially sound for them. You know, they just don't want to bother with it right now, which is somewhat understandable, kind of a ick day move, if you will. But you know, as time moves on, as things get bigger and better for Google and this program, who knows? Maybe Verizon and AT&T will eventually sign up for it. But let me know. Let us know if Project Fi is something in your near future, if you would ever consider doing that for you and or your loved one, or maybe even just for your kid. If you look at all the different prepaid options that are out there for smartphones, you know, take away the cost of the Nexus 6. Let's just assume you have an extra Nexus 6 just kind of laying around, and you want to give it to your 10-year-old, 11-year-old, and they would essentially have a gigabyte limit because you would only be paying $30 for them. And so, for example, for my son that's on my plan with Verizon, to have his line active, it's $30. But he has his dumb phone. It's just a basic flip phone with a keyboard. But if he were to get a smartphone, it would be an additional $30 or $40 for the data. So I'm already paying there $60 or $70, and well, I guess I would hope that he wouldn't be using the phone so much at school, and then when he comes home, he would just be on the Wi-Fi. So for $30 a month for a child, that's not too bad. The really big barrier here is the initial cost of the device, I would say. But like I said, this is just the entry point. This is just the first step into it, and maybe we'll get some entry-level Android devices, or even iOS and Windows device. Well, probably not Windows, to be honest with you, but maybe iOS later on this year. So yeah, like I said, if you have any questions or comments or anything that you want to add regarding this, definitely let us know in the comments below or here in the Q&A. But I'm very excited because I know I personally have been waiting for this to come to fruition for many moons. Like, I've talked about Google getting their own carrier for many months, many years actually, ever since the advent of Android and it becoming a hometown a home run, so to speak. And now that they're actually doing it, this might innovate the overall mobile phone spectrum, in the sense that carriers might see this and say, okay, we need to do something different, because although our infrastructure is a lot better than Project Fi, it could get to the point where they can be seen as a threat. And that might take a few years, but if Verizon and AT&T are smart, they're going to keep a close eye at Project Fi over the next few years to either combat them or join them. And hey, just like anything else, if you can't beat them, maybe you do join them. Next up, Facebook announced a new application for Android. They announced a new home, or rather a new contact and phone dialer called Hello. The way that this would work is with your Android device, you would download Hello from the Google Play Store. And in essence, you would then sign in with your existing Facebook account. And with all of your friends that are on your Facebook account, when you start typing their name to call them, or if they call you, right away, Facebook will already know to use the correct image so you can see who's calling you, their correct name, and then other pertinent information that relates to them. Like maybe it's their birthday, or maybe you want to know that the person that's calling you is, you know, a colleague of yours, but you're not really close with them. Like for my day job, I've added a bunch of friends throughout Microsoft that do similar position, that have similar positions to me, but I don't know them. Like I I know them enough, but I don't know them enough to like say, oh, I know that's Tom's number. I'm going to go ahead and pick up. So Hello would give me some more background information of that person, so I can say, oh, hey, Tom, hey, by the way, happy birthday. And that's all thanks to Facebook's Hello app. Now, you might say, okay, well, that's a little bit of evasive. I don't know how much I would want to give out there if people are using this app. First of all, no one's forcing you to use the app. Second of all, Facebook does allow you to have some privacy controls, not much. But one privacy control is who can look me up, and you know, who can look you up in the email address provided. So that's something that you can specify. You know, everybody can look me up via my email, or just my friends, or friends of friends. And then one that TechCrunch points out, who can look me up by using the phone number that I provided. Now, I don't believe I have my phone number attached to Facebook, so if I use this, I think they might force me to add my phone number into my profile list. I'm not really keen on doing that. I mean, really, like, if I want you to have my phone number, I'm going to give it to you. So I'd actually have to kind of test it out to see if I can just do this without giving my phone number. But then one really cool feature about Hello is that you can easily block numbers when they call you. Plus, you could turn on a crowdsourced block list. So let's just say tens of thousands of people have blocked this one telemarketer, and Facebook has gone into that database. And when that telemarketer calls you and you've had this auto block feature turned on, it'll just automatically block that individual. And that's pretty cool. Also, they don't seem to be wanting to monetize this right now. I think they attempted to do something like this maybe with the Facebook Home application, which was that launcher app that they tried, which obviously didn't go so well. If you guys remember the Facebook, I think it was called the Facebook First, the HTC First, which was such a joke. But in any event, it's an interesting step back into, you know, an Android only application for Facebook. I would kind of hope that Facebook and their infinite amount of money would invest more so on the new applications from Instagram, like Hyperlapse and what's the other one called? I forget. The Layout. I'd love to see those on Android, just to kind of mess around with them, because I use Instagram a lot. But I do use Facebook, obviously, for my day job and to keep close tabs with friends and family. I do use Facebook Messenger. As many people as my joke about who the hell uses Facebook Messenger, well, this guy does. And with Facebook Messenger integrated with Facebook's Hello app, you can now just automatically Facebook message them instead of having to use your text messaging or something else. And it's all kind of integrated into that ecosystem. So it's not like a jarring experience where it's like, oh, I want to text you, maybe, so let me exit out of this and go into my native texting application, or go into something like Google Hangouts. What I would like to see Facebook Hello allow you to choose your default messaging app, as long as it's Facebook. So WhatsApp, there's so many people that use WhatsApp. I think the last amount of count that was on WhatsApp was 800 million people that are on WhatsApp right now worldwide. And I don't use that personally. I use that professionally. But let's just say, for argument's sake, that I move WhatsApp over to be my main means of texting and sending instant messages to people. I would like Facebook to give me that option because WhatsApp is a Facebook property. So maybe that's something later down the line that they're planning on doing, but who knows? Yeah, so we'll see if this is sticky or not. The last few apps that Facebook tried to do, I forget what the name of the app that tried to compete against Snapchat, but that obviously didn't go so well because, shoot, I don't think anyone really remembers the name of that application. But it should be good for some people, maybe not for all. But you know, it's just an option. If you're not familiar with Android, the one beautiful thing about it is that there are options, and there are a myriad of dialer options that are out there. And for someone that is new, let's just say for argument's sake, they hate the Samsung TouchWiz dialer. They just hate the layout. They hate how it looks. Then maybe there's too many button presses, and they're really into Facebook. And they find this when they search for phone dialer, and it would be one of the first things that pops up, and it says the company name for hello is Facebook. Maybe it just works for them, and that's great for those individuals. So I'm going to hold judgment off of the whole application myself for a little bit. I'm going to try and test it out on my Nexus 6 maybe later on tomorrow, but that should be good. Now moving over to Microsoft. Microsoft announced today that they have launched the Windows 10 technical preview build 161, and that's not 161, that's 10061 to basically replace the 10049 build that came out maybe 2 weeks ago. And this is really good because Microsoft did promise that technical builds would be rolling out a lot more quicker as time moves on. And they didn't really keep to their promise at first, but now it seems like they are doing just that now. And part of 161 are a couple of minor upgrades, but one thing that they've done is that there are new calendar and mail applications. So there's a lot more, it's a lot, basically there's a improved performance. There's a familiar 3-pane email UI. So the 3-pane email UI, one pane has inbox, sent messages, deleted messages, you know, spam messages. The middle pane has the actual list of your inbox. In the third pane, the larger pane, has the actual content of whatever email that is that you're looking at. Both mail and calendar apps are supported for Office 365, Exchange, Outlook, Gmail, IMAP, Pop, and other popular accounts. The Start, Taskbar, and Action Centers have all been improved. There's a new black system theme. The taskbar and the action center now has transparency, and you can also resize the start menu. So right now, if you've seen the Windows 10 technical preview, the start menu basically, even when you don't enlarge it, it still kind of takes up a huge portion of the screen. And for some people, they just want to shrink that down. So now that they allow you to resize the start menu to a certain degree. Also, they have something called auto color. Now, this reminds me of what Google has done with material design. So with material design, if you're watching right now, or even if you're watching after the fact, they've done something kind of cool. So I'll pull up the application Pocket Cast. So this is Pocket Cast here. Hopefully you can see that. And I'm going to pull up one of my favorite podcasts called Tech News Today. And Tech News Today, as you can see, has kind of a blue background. And when I play Tech News Today, let me turn down the volume. When I play Tech News Today and I make it, oh, this one actually didn't do it. Let me find one that does do it, actually. Okay, so Tech News Today didn't work. But I do know Star Wars Minute will. So this is me doing this on the fly. Maybe I should have this prepared. Oh, maybe they stopped doing that in their latest update. So I apologize. I didn't actually have this prepared, but you'll have to take my word for some of this. But let me just explain. The dominant color in the application that you're using will now color the toolbars, and it'll basically color the toolbars and the start bar, the taskbar, and the action center. So if you open up a web page and the background of that web page is blue, then the rest of all of your computer is going to kind of have that similar color aspect. So I don't know about looking familiar, but it'll have this kind of experience where all the color looks the same, and it's not like a jarring kind of jump out of the experience that you're in. So you're looking at a blue website, I don't know, blue.com, and you open up your start menu, and the start menu has shades of blue. The taskbar will have shades of blue. And then you go to another website that has shades of red, and then the same thing's going to happen. Start menu has shades of red. The action center will have shades of red. And if for those of you that haven't experienced this, and it might seem like, oh, that seems a little jarring, it's actually nice. It's actually quite nice. And so I wanted to show you that on the Pocket Cast application, but the folks over at Pocket Cast, Shifty Jelly, they did an update which did some pretty cool things, but I guess they took away the ability for the background color to match the same color as the album art. So yeah, so kind of made me a liar. But hey, in any event, this is, at least for now, this is coming to Windows. Also, they've improved Continuum. Continuum is that ability to go between tablet mode and desktop mode. Task View has been improved. So Task View is kind of, if you ever used Windows computer, it's the Alt-Tab, where you can see all the applications that are open at the same time. But within that Task View, there's also virtual desktop improvements. The virtual desktops now, you have no limit to the amount of virtual desktops that you want. So you can have 3,000 virtual desktops, and what's going to happen is they're just going to line up right underneath each other, and you can, at that point, move the applications over to whichever desktop that you want them to live in for that time being. That's the one thing that I'm not quite sure how it's going to pan out, if people are going to embrace virtual desktops, because I was under the impression at first virtual desktops would be kind of sort of similar to how it is on an Android device or an iOS device, where that you have different home screens, and the home screens stay the same. Like, unless you change it, the home screens will always be that. I turn the phone off, I turn it back on, and these are my home screens. And I was under the impression that the virtual desktop, because the desktop, the singular desktop, always stays the same, I was under the impression the virtual desktops would allow me to also customize the subsequent desktops to be different from the primary desktop. So my primary desktop would be my work desktop, and then my secondary desktop would be my social desktop. My third desktop would be my media desktop with like my music and stuff like that. And I could create widgets and maybe bring back widgets from Windows Vista and Windows 7, and all these things were kind of running through my head, and that hasn't come to pass. Maybe they will do it, but at least for the time being, of the moment that you are using multiple desktops for your project that you're doing on your Surface or whatever, what have you, now you have the unlimited amount to kind of pull from. So that's kind of cool. Also, they announced some features coming to the Windows 10 and Xbox One preview app for Xbox. So if you also have Windows 10 preview installed on your machine and you download the Xbox app, you have now a game DVR for PC games. This is awesome. I think this is really, really cool, because there are a myriad of software out there that you have to subsequently install in addition to your operating system and your game and everything, to do game DVR. And while they might be great, I think Blackmagic is one of them, while they might be great, it's really nice to have that all kind of integrated. So there's going to be a game DVR for PC games, and the way that you bring it up is there's something called a game bar, and you would press the window key G, and then click the record that, and it will actually save the last 30 seconds of gameplay. And then you can manually start and stop the game recording by either clicking the record button or using the keyboard shortcut. The length of the length of the recording can be changed, including the maximum length as well as the minimum. To screenshot a PC game, all you have to do is Windows Alt and print screen, and the screenshot will then go into the game bar, so it's easily accessible. You don't have to go print screen and then open up your Paint app and then kind of crop everything out. You won't have to deal with that. Live tiles, the Xbox Live tile on your Windows 10 start menu now welcomes you, showing off your game pick, letting you know when you have new messages. So that's all kind of been updated. There's a new avatar app. user profile, so you can actually see another gamer's bio, location, tenure, and other information that's related to them. And if you want, you can do real name sharing. So if you're, in a co-op environment where you're continuously playing with Blackadder 33, you're like, you are totally awesome. What's your name? Like, my name's Simon. It's like, all right, now you will have the ability to share your real name if you want to. Now, on the Xbox side of it, Xbox One will now allow you to have a little bit more playing and media controls. So the games and apps that you used most recently on your Xbox One are now displayed when you connect your Xbox app to your console. You'll have live streaming picture-in-picture support here in the United States. In order to do that, you're going to have to purchase a Hauppauge, I think that's the pronunciation. I don't know. Hodgepodge. I would just call Hodgepodge. 955Q TV tuner. They're like $50. And then you can connect that. So that works in the U.S. and U.S. and Canada. And also, the Smart Glass application would allow you to turn off and on the Xbox itself. And you will now have support for Miracast. Up until now, if you wanted to use Miracast, at least from the Microsoft side, you actually had to use the Miracast wireless display dongle, which isn't a bad thing. I mean, I think it's great because it's just a small little USB HDMI dongle, and it plugs into any TV, and it works pretty well. There's no Wi-Fi required, and now it's basically built into your Xbox app. So if you've been using that dongle and you have an Xbox One, unplug that dongle and just use your Xbox One. That's pretty cool. And there's a few other updates in there too. So that's really cool to kind of seeing down the line what is going to be available for the Xbox. And going back to Android, the Outlook preview for Android is no longer a preview. So if you've ever used Outlook preview for Android, which essentially is the same application that it was called Acompli, and then Microsoft acquired that company, they have dropped the preview moniker, and now it's just called Outlook for Android. Outlook for Android now supports not only Outlook, Live.com, Hotmail, and all those other things, but it also supports IMAP, which if I remember, it didn't before. So now it does, but it doesn't. Right now, it doesn't support your run-of-the-mill POP3. So it actually, you know what? If I remember, it did support IMAP before, but just not your run-of-the-mill POP3. So maybe later down the line they'll do that. But I would get off POP3 and just go and use IMAP. Just saying, POP3 is kind of old school. They've revised the people section. They've revised the directory search as well as the calendar. There's a 3-day calendar view when you turn your phone sideways. So that's pretty awesome. So yeah, that's pretty much it for right now. I'm gonna go ahead and check the Q&A. If you have any questions or if you said anything in the Q&A, nothing yet. All right. So like I said, we're gonna try and do this every night around 11 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. You can always hit me up ahead of time, LTG Tony on Twitter right here, or you can find me here on Google Plus Tony Hannity's, or connect with me on all of my social media, which can be found at about.me/tninja3000. And that's going to be it for me tonight. I really do appreciate your time, and I will hope to see you next time. Take care.